Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
So, in an article written by Emmy Harrison West, we learned that for the upcoming musical fantasy film Matilda, Emma Thompson has been pictured reportedly wearing a fat suit for her role as the fictional headmistress, Agatha Trunchbull. Harrison West reports that as a bigger woman, she finds this caricature of her body type utterly dehumanizing and degrading. She goes on to say that plus size women, especially, are often punished for being the size they are, as they're seen to be rejecting the strict confines of society. She says to say that prosthetics for fat characters are designed to be ugly. They're wobbly, dimpled, grotesque, humiliating, and don't treat the plus size community with the dignity or respect they deserve. It's hardly a coincidence that actresses that do wear fat suits often portray characters that are unloved, undesirable, and often non sexual as well. Harmful stereotypes and fat phobia still exist, and slimmer actresses are still heaving themselves into heavy foam prosthetics without feeling the repercussions. They just get paid to pretend to be overweight. This also isn't the first time that being overweight has directly been connected to the characterization of a villain or undesirable character in a story. Ursula from The Little Mermaid, Governor Ratcliffe in Pocahontas, and Dudley Dursley were all portrayed as gluttonous villains who overindulge. Dolores Umbridge, one of the most hated villains from Harry Potter, was described in the book to be a short, squat woman resembling a large, pale toad with a broad, flabby face, a wide, slack mouth, and a little neck. And so, with all of that being said, Andre, do you think that fat phobia is still a major issue in Hollywood?
100,000%. And
A
it's
million percent.
like really all the percents. Like it's very evident just about honestly everywhere. Like we've discussed this before on our episode titled Fat Phobia, but this is hardly a conversation that can only be unpacked in one sitting. Like it has been shoved in our faces in just about every major media outlet that being fat is not a desirable quality to have. In comedies, being fat is played up for laughs or just an indicator of an unlikable character that audiences can are meant to hate on. In dramas, it's often synonymous with some type of weight loss journey. And even in sci-fi, fat people are often characterized as monstrous or evil. Like the one thing that remains in all of those different genres is one simple fact that society views fatness as something to be discarded, feared, and made fun of. Like, let's take the show Martin, for example. There was
Hmm.
a character on the show named Big Shirley, whose main characteristic, as described by other characters, was just that she was a plus sized, fat, tall woman. Now, in one of the few appearances she made on the show, her walk toward Martin's apartment building was played up so much by the writers, with them having the apartment building literally shake and rumble as if her steps were causing an earthquake. Like in her other appearance, she was seen as to be so large that only her torso was visible on screen, and a burp so loud and so strong that it caused a windstorm in the bar. And then let's look at the Parkers as another example. The only reason that Professor Ogilvy didn't show interest in Miss Parker was the fact that she was a plus size woman, which the writers had no problem with pointing out often during the show's run. Not to mention the fact that pretty much every major protagonist in just about every major television series and film is either slim or muscular. I mean,
Right.
the few times we've seen plus sized women depicted on screen in a positive light is usually when they are a particular type of curvy. Very much the woman whose weight displays more in their thighs and their butt rather than their stomachs. It's almost as if Hollywood just can't seem to fathom a fictional universe where a plus size person's entire identity isn't just them being big. And even in shows where all of the characters are in relationships and having sex, the plus size character is always unable to find someone to hook up with or date because why? You guessed it, because their whole character arc is about them overcoming their struggles with their weight. Or even worse, it's about them finding the white knight whose only defining characteristic is that he or she doesn't care about their weight, and that the plus size character is expected to remain with them because, in the writer's eyes, that's the best they can do, or this is as good as it's going to get for them. They don't get to play the field and date around like the skinny characters do, because any relationship they find in these fatphobic shows is just a stroke of good luck that will never happen again, like lightning striking twice, which is complete and utter bullshit. But Daquon, I want to pass the question back to you. What do you think? Is Hollywood still having an issue with fat phobia?
Have they ever stopped? Because the thing that is most frustrating is like, even beyond like the stereotypical depiction of fat characters, whatever. If you are going to have a fat character, even if they have these negative stereotypes, why not hire a fat actress or actor? If you're going to have a plus size character, why not have a plus size person playing said character? Because here's the thing, skinnier actresses and actors can always play the skinny protagonist. They can also play the plus size villain. Plus size people will never be able to play that skinny protagonist
Mhm.
because so often people cannot see that skinny protagonist as being anything other than slim or muscular or whatever. Having
Mhm.
a plus size person in that role would break the continuities of the character and is taking you out of the actual plot because it really wouldn't happen. And it's like, there are plus size people who are desirable. Like, it happens every single day. And
Plenty.
so every single second, every minute, like all the
A
time,
plethora.
a plethora. And so it's really frustrating when we have things like this where you could have just hired a plus size person and
Yeah.
not go through all of these prosthetics and everything. And even when you do create the prosthetics, like this writer said, you make them so grotesque and
Yeah.
everything like that. You emphasize certain features that are undesirable. Like, you literally make like cellulite and stretch marks so extreme that it's apparent. And so you often creates all of these negative stereotypes of bigger people's bodies.
Yeah.
And going back to the whole argument of how plus size characters are often villainized, it's frustrating to see that because you are literally dehumanizing people. Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, there are plenty of plus size people, and you are saying that because you are plus size, that there is this intrinsic moral value assumed by your weight. If you are
Mhm.
plus size, then you have to be gluttonous. If you are plus size, you have to be villainous. You have to be mean and nasty and a slob and all of these different things. And it's like, no, plus size people are still people. They still run the gamut of all different types of, personalities and abilities and everything like that. So it's like, you cannot create a personality value just because of somebody's body type.
Exactly. And I think it's, you know, like I think it's also the fact that we've like so closely associated being skinny with being healthy. Like if people see a big person just living their best life, eating pizza, society has taught us to look down on that person or worry, quote unquote, about that person's health because any kind of jiggle in the stomach area is considered to be a sign of obesity. Even if that person was working out every day, celebrating some major accomplishment by eating this pizza, or even have a clean bill of health from their doctor, people just don't care. Yet, if those same fucking people see a skinny or muscular person eating a pizza, their minds do go to those assumptions that the person is just having a good time, treating themselves, or so on. No one wonders if that skinny person, a muscular person, has anorexia, bulimia, or has been told by their doctors that their intense working out is actually unhealthy for them, unless they are noticeably sick. We have been taught that desirable, healthy people have to look a certain way, and any deviation from the standard quote unquote hot person look is considered to be an indication of declining health. Like, we've seen this everywhere on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, with mukbang videos where
Mm-hmm.
skinnier people and big people will proportionally eat the exact same amount of food, but their comment sections are vastly different, even though they are filled with the same people who watched both videos. Like, these people don't give a fuck about anyone's health, and just about all of them are uncertified to give medical advice. I mean, in hell, shit, even the ones that are certified have no idea and usually don't care what lifestyle choices a person has been making or is making to come to an accurate, unbiased conclusion about the status of that person's health. But we know that medical fat phobia is a thing, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But
Right.
society has just trained us to think that gaining weight or being big is a nasty, gross, or unhealthy. But we need to learn that fatness and grossness are not synonymous. Like, gross and nasty and unhealthy people exist in all shapes and sizes, just as clean, healthy people can exist in all shapes and sizes. Personality traits and hygiene has nothing to do with the weight and everything to do with the character of the person. But I want to ask you, Daquon, why do you think that weight has been so inextricably tied to whether a person is considered undesirable, lazy, gross, or hateful or something?
Let's say it again. Racism, anti-blackness. We know that throughout history, there was plenty of times when being curvier, having bigger hips, bigger thighs, being a little bit thicker was seen as more desirable. It meant that you were healthy because you were, eating proportionately and, not suffering from famine.
Yeah.
And so, of course, with the advent of slavery and all of these different things, white people looked at black bodies, which were naturally curvier and thicker in certain areas, and was like, let's create zoos of black people and just make fun of their bodies because oh my gosh, this black woman's breasts are so big that she could literally toss it over her shoulder to feed a baby. And they create these caricatures of blackness because of their bodies. And that has been so ingrained in our society since it was founded. And so often, like you said, we have people being like, well, I'm only caring about their health. And it's like, you are stopping at physical health, which is a myth by itself, but you are stopping at the physical health. What about the mental health? What about the emotional health, the spiritual health? All of these do play a role in somebody's weight and their body and things like that. Because for so many people, the size of their body is pretty genetic. Your body will sustain whatever body size that it was meant to be. So even if you try all of these different crash diets and everything like that, if your body was not meant to be that skinny, it's going to come right back to what size is its equilibrium. And you also don't realize how much, history plays a role in that, because for so many people, science has shown that for descendants of people that have gone through all these different types of famines and everything like that, people's bodies evolve and change to hold more weight and fat and everything like that because of generations of people that starved to death during these famines. So it's like there's so much science out there that proves that you're wrong, but all of a sudden this gym bro with no type of medical or any type of science degree whatsoever is the authority of what's being healthy. Because let's look at somebody like Lizzo, who has talked about this so many times, but you can watch a Lizzo performance and she is on that stage dancing, moving up and down, going left and right, all everywhere in between, singing, rapping, playing the fucking flute. And she's doing all of that and has amazing breath control.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, some of these skinnier pop divas are sitting in the middle of the stage singing and they can barely catch their breath. And so it's like you say it's all about worrying about that person's health, and it's like they're not showing signs of really being that unhealthy. Like they are outperforming so many people who do have skinnier body types. And even if that's not the case, even if somebody's health is, not that great, they don't have that ability to exercise or have anything like that, somebody's health is their personal information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't come to you and being like, oh, what about that time in third grade when you caught pneumonia? What about that time in seventh grade you got that ear infection? Like, can I see your ear? Can I get all
Yeah.
up in your ear? Like, no, because the things that you go through, your journey with your health is your own. And me being an outsider that's not living in the body that you possess has no obligation to any of your personal health information. And so, even if somebody is quote unquote unhealthy, that's their life, not yours. And you are, especially these random people on the internet, you are not their friend, you are not their partner, you are not their loved one in any of that way. So, why are you worrying about their health like that?